When you look at a lot of companies, not many of them last past the person, like their founder, right? It's like you look at companies like Apple, they've managed to like pass on after Steve Jobs and become even more successful and carry on and grow. And you look at companies that have like kind of dwindled, and if they haven't like completely disappeared, they've gone like Kodak or something. You know what I mean? Like they just didn't get past the first initiative, their first push, the first generation. And you guys like 100 years. So there's not a lot of companies that have done that successfully.
Yeah. And I think it's crazy too for us. Like when we hear Steve and Shane and some of our leadership talk about when they came over to Milwaukee, like there were times that we thought maybe we would have to turn the lights out.
Sure.
Like that's where we were, because we've been owned by a lot of different people over the generations. Before us, it was Atlas Copco. Before that, it was some private equity. And I think at some point a church owned us, which is just crazy to think about. And we had this kind of like best in class mindset where it was, we never really launched innovative products in the 80s, let's say. It was all about incremental improvements. Hey, this is going to go X times faster, all that kind of stuff. So when Steve and Shane and those guys came in, it just blew everything up. And Shane always tells the story about when we launched our M12 line, Steve came in and said, hey, I want to do something like this. And Shane's like, okay, I think we can do that. And Steve's like, I want it in 6 months. And Shane's like, that completely turned, I think, everyone's mindset upside down, because new product development for that at that point was like a 2-3 year process. We don't just enter a space, like we come in to disrupt a space. So we have to work cross-functionally with our product teams, with our channel teams, like from a program marketing perspective, like what is our plan to come in and own it, not just come in and bring our bag of goods that we can sell. And that's what's, I think, going to be fun over the next couple of years based off what Mike's built.
Yeah, and kind of like what we did with Power, like go back to 2015, started what we talked about last time is, no one really, people knew the brand, but they didn't really associate the brand with the power utility industry. And now it's kind of, hopefully kind of synonymous. So what we got to do there is do the same thing, is don't put our toe in the water when we go after gas utility, jump in head first, and let's get after it in a big way.
You ask a group of linemen, hey, who's had shoulder problems, who has carpal tunnel? Exactly. Yeah, that's one of the first things. And that is where we started and worked backwards, was how do we make these tools more ergonomic? How do we extend the lifetime of a lineman so that they can work later in their career if they choose to?
Tools.
What's that?
And buy more tools.
Yeah, and buy more tools.
More products, more solutions, everything.
Okay. Yeah. But that was kind of
safety first, but
yeah. Well, there was just, this industry hadn't been disrupted, in our opinion, by a major brand in a long time, and that's where, as soon as we started exploring and we started making connections, we're like, let's go. Well, there were some things we missed, and we're humble enough to say, hey, we missed it, and we're going to life cycle this, and we're going to integrate every piece of feedback we got from a lineman to make this thing better.
Instead of just pushing the same product for eternity.
Even take like a remote cutter, right? We have a cutter that can do, it's connected via Bluetooth, and you can set it up in the Volt and get out of the Volt and make the cut, right? So there's no spiking necessarily needed anymore. We kind of eliminated a step of the process, and then we put the field of the lineman in a safer environment, right? Away from the potential energized line, right? So it wasn't just like, here's our cutter. It was, how do we innovate, right? Well, we came out the Bluetooth remote cutter for 3-inch, and we just came out the 5-inch one this year.
You have to do the work in order to learn the thing too. Like, you can't just study it. You have to do it. And lineman, like, it's built into the program of apprenticeship, and how you learn in trades and in line work is like, you have to go do the thing. Like, you can go to school, sure. We go to school for a few weeks a year, but it's really only a few weeks a year. It's like 5 weeks every 14 months for like 3.5-4 years. And the real learning comes when you take that and you just go apply it, and you apply it again and again and again and again until you learn how to do that thing. Like, whatever, setting a pole, sawing a bank. Like, yeah. You got to do the thing. You got to do the work.
This is the one team mentality. This is how we do it. And that's how we look at everything.
One team, one goal.
Mike and I can't be successful in power utility without the product team being involved. We can't be successful without the channel team being involved. Can't be successful without the leadership team being involved. Like,
manufacturing, distribution,
yeah.
the field to everyone, right? It takes
quality, service, like you kind of name it. Like we're connected. We are aligned. Like that's how we keep this thing moving forward. We have to have the same relationship we do with the grunt that we do with the executive, right? Like that's how our business works. Like that's how we learn from you guys. Like we got to get that perspective from the guy on the ground or the journeyman or the executive, so that we make sure we're taking everything into consideration. So it's not just about, like, to your point, like we want to, it's all about learning. And if we're being authentic and being genuine, asking the right questions and being vulnerable, like we're going to get that connection. One of the last things the industry needed was another hand tool brand, right? Like there's so many out there. And when we started it, I think we started with an initial 11. It wasn't just about, like we always say, lick and stick, right? Like you can go to a supplier overseas and say, hey, I want that one, put my brand on it. For us, it was all about, we talked about coming in and disrupting a space. It was those small, intricate pieces of innovation that we see guys doing in the field, and how can we make this better for the end user? So it wasn't about the lick and stick model. It was about grassroots feedback from the user, integrate it, disrupt, and convert versus some of our competition.
Whatever tool a lineman has in their hand at that moment in time is a hammer. If it's a screwdriver, it's a hammer. If it's a lower or lineman wrench, it's a hammer.
And it's not just like a gimmick. It's rated and engineered and tested as a hammer.
And it's a hammer.
That can also be a wrench. Yeah.
We listened to the customer, and that one, I don't know if people said put a hammer on it. It was just more of a taking a step back and watching them, and why not come out with a hammer?
And then we launched the smooth face, and people are like, I haven't ever used a smooth face. We make this waffle, and came out with the
6 months
face.
or 8 months.
Yeah.
Good job, Adam.
Yeah. Our goal right now is to take gas and oil off the trucks, right? Like, how do we replace anything that a lineman would use on a truck? And that there's many reasons behind that. Obviously, there's the battery technology for us and the system play, but ultimately, more user-friendly, more productive.
I grew up in the era of, like, battery tools sucked. They basically were just coming in.
Yeah.
They didn't exist. And, like, in particular, the gas drills for utility space.
The Tanaka
horrible. Horrible. No torque. They barely ever started, especially up in Canada. Like, you'd have this thing. You're often traveling around the province, top to bottom, in like one day. So you're like at sea level one day, and you're in the mountains the next. Right. And then you're up on a freaking 60-foot pole, and you're just like pulling, and then it wouldn't go, and then you stick it in the pole, it dies down.
Bog down. Yeah.
You might as well just take your wrench and like grind a hole through the pole.
Right.
And now you can just like take it a Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And it's just like that. It's done. But again, like, nobody has to struggle anymore. Like, thanks for taking the struggle out. Why is craft labor important for the country? Why is it important to focus on craft skilled labor?
I mean, that's what builds America. That's what keeps America moving, right? There's, good paying jobs, good people, and it's important, right? That's how we build civilizations. That's how we keep it moving forward. That's what allows us to live in a way, right? I mean, infrastructure, homes, manufacturing, all that stuff, right? Kind of gets rolled up into one. I'm an advocate now of when I've talked to like neighbors and their kids and even my kids, of instead of just plowing that college narrative, it's look at the skilled trades, look at all that stuff, right? Like absolutely. Like my kids, I don't know if college is where they want to go or what they want to do. They're young. But I do push with the older kids of look at that apprenticeship, right? Especially linemen. All the time I push it.
How do we teach the rest of the country in the U.S. about this avenue that kids can have if that is not their thing? Like, there's a lot of kids that are good at working with their hands. They're mechanically inclined. Like, they love doing math and being challenged and climbing, and like it's like this exhilarating thing that we just, unless you're a part of it, you don't know about it. Yeah. We're trying. That's part of our goal too, is to help the industry.